Most people know MASH as one of the most beloved TV series in American history, but very few realize just how unlikely its journey really was. The story didn't begin in Hollywood. It started with a surgeon who had seen the chaos of war up close. Dr. H. Richard Hornberger, who had served during the Korean conflict, poured his experiences into a novel he released in 1968. He wrote under the pen name Richard Hooker, and his book pulled no punches. It was sharp, cynical, and packed with the kind of dark humor only someone who had been there could truly understand. The novel caught attention quickly, not because it was glamorous, but because it felt brutally honest. Hollywood came calling, first adapting it into the 1970 feature film. That movie was edgy, satirical, and controversial for its time. But when the idea was floated to bring it to television, the challenge was enormous. Could such a raw, biting story work on primetime TV? CBS thought so, but with conditions. The darker edges of the novel had to be softened. The result was a series that somehow managed to weave together laugh-out-loud humor with moments of heartbreaking drama. That mix is exactly what made MASH unlike anything else on television. But as groundbreaking as that origin story was, it was nothing compared to the chaos and drama that unfolded once the cameras actually started rolling.
The man behind the pilot episode was Larry Gelbart, a writer who had already made a name for himself in Hollywood. By the early 70s, though, he was burned out. Tired of the endless grind of the industry, Gelbart moved to London, hoping to escape the pressure cooker of American television. But fate had other plans. When he was approached to adapt MASH for television, Gelbart almost said no, but something about the project called to him. He sat down, poured everything he had into the script, and finished it in just 2 days. 2 days! Most writers struggle for weeks or even months to nail a single pilot, but Gelbart captured the perfect balance of comedy and tragedy in less than 48 hours. The network was stunned. Not only was the script brilliant, it was fast. Lightning fast. CBS knew they had struck gold, and they paid Gelbart a hefty $25,000 for his work. For 1972, that was a small fortune. On September 17th of that year, the pilot aired. No one could have predicted it then, but those opening moments marked the start of a television phenomenon that would last more than a decade. But Gelbart's quick success also set a dangerous precedent. A series born out of chaos and speed often attracts more of the same. And soon, that chaos would spill over into the cast itself.
From the very beginning, casting MASH was a nightmare. CBS executives wanted recognizable faces who could guarantee ratings, but Larry Gelbart fought for actors who could embody the characters with authenticity rather than just star power. Alan Alda wasn't the first choice for Hawkeye Pierce. Far from it. Several actors were approached before him, but none seemed to strike the right balance between sharp comedy and deep humanity. Alda had that rare ability to be hilarious one moment and devastatingly serious the next. When he read for the part, it was obvious. No one else could carry the show the way he could. But not everyone fit so perfectly. Wayne Rogers, cast as Trapper John, constantly battled with the creative team over how much attention his character received compared to Hawkeye. McLean Stevenson, who played Colonel Blake, became frustrated with being overshadowed and later made the fateful decision to leave the series at its height. And then there was Gary Burghoff, reprising his role as Radar from the film. On screen, he was lovable and innocent, but off screen, he was often described as moody and difficult to work with. The tension among the cast was real, but that very tension fueled performances that felt authentic. The laughs were genuine, the frustrations even more so, and behind the scenes, CBS had no idea they had just assembled a powder keg that could either blow the show apart or turn it into something unforgettable. And as the series found its rhythm, one unexpected truth emerged. MASH was never just a comedy. It was something far more daring.
One of the most surprising success stories in MASH came from a character who was never meant to stick around. Maxwell Q. Klinger, played by Jamie Farr, was originally written for a single episode gag. The idea came from comedian Lenny Bruce, who once claimed he got discharged from the Navy by pretending to be gay. Writers borrowed that concept and decided to push it in a different direction. Instead of portraying Klinger as gay, something that would have been considered too controversial for television at the time, they reimagined him as a straight man who wore women's clothes to prove he was unfit for military service. It was outrageous, hilarious, and oddly endearing. Audiences loved what was supposed to be a throwaway character became a fan favorite. Jamie Farr brought so much warmth and personality to Klinger that the writers had no choice but to expand his role. Before long, Klinger wasn't just comic relief, he was one of
of the emotional anchors of the show. His schemes to escape the army were funny, yes, but they also reflected the desperation of real soldiers who wanted out of a war they never signed up for. Klinger proved that MASH could take even the most absurd concept and give it heart, and his rise from background joke to beloved main character wouldn't be the last surprise the show had in store. In fact, the most authentic moments often came from something no script could fake. While MASH was a sitcom at its core, the producers were determined to ground it in reality. To capture the real look and feel of life in a mobile army surgical hospital, they brought in people who had actually lived it. Many of the extras seen in the background, the nurses, the patients, the soldiers, were real Korean War veterans. Some had even served in surgical units just like the one the show depicted. This wasn't just window dressing. Their presence shaped the entire atmosphere on set. Veterans would quietly correct details, how a bandage should be wrapped, how a soldier might react when coming out of surgery, even how exhausted doctors would slump into a chair after a 20-hour shift. Those little touches made MASH feel authentic in ways no Hollywood production could fake. Alan Alda, whose father had served in World War II, pushed especially hard for this realism. He insisted the show never glorify war or sugarcoat the suffering of soldiers. To Alda, every laugh had to be balanced with truth, because behind the comedy, there was always tragedy. And that balance is what set MASH apart. It was the first sitcom that dared to be funny and heartbreaking in the very same breath. But not every battle was fought on the set. One of the biggest wars happened off screen, and it had nothing to do with the Korean conflict. If you've ever watched MASH, you might have noticed something unusual about the laughter. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. And that inconsistency is no accident. From day one, the creative team hated the idea of a laugh track. Larry Gelbart and Alan Alda argued that canned laughter would cheapen the show's impact. How could audiences truly feel the weight of a soldier dying on the operating table if laughter was dropped in seconds earlier? To them, MASH wasn't just a comedy, it was a human story, and real life doesn't come with an applause sign. But CBS executives disagreed. They believed audiences at the time needed the laugh track as a cue, a signal that it was okay to laugh. Without it, they feared viewers wouldn't understand it was a sitcom at all. The result was a compromise. Most episodes aired with canned laugh, but the surgical scenes were strictly off limits. The operating room was sacred. No jokes, no audience prompts, just raw tension and realism. Interestingly, in the UK, the show aired without a laugh track at all. Many fans who discovered the series later on DVD say the laughter-free version feels more powerful, more authentic, and more true to the spirit of what the creators wanted. It was a rare case where the fight over sound became just as important as the dialogue itself. And while that battle was intense, it was nothing compared to the real drama brewing among the cast members behind the scenes. Even with brilliant writing and authentic performances, MASH wasn't immune to behind-the-scenes chaos. The cast was talented, yes, but egos, tempers, and creative disagreements often collided like bombs in a war zone. The writers faced a particularly unusual problem. The actors constantly requested changes to their lines, arguing over dialogue, timing, or character direction. To send the message, the writing team came up with a creative solution. On 2 separate occasions, they forced the actors to film outdoor scenes wearing heavy winter parkas in scorching heat. Sometimes temperatures soared above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweating, uncomfortable, and frustrated, the cast quickly realized that pushing the writers too far came with consequences. But while that tactic worked for a time, it didn't solve every problem. Some cast members clashed with one another on a much deeper level. Rivalry simmered, personalities clashed, and in some cases, tempers erupted. And at the center of much of this tension was one man who was loved by audiences, but not always by his co-stars. The stage was being set for drama that no script could contain, and it would soon explode in ways no one saw coming. Radar O'Reilly, the lovable company clerk with the teddy bear and the big heart, was a fan favorite. But behind the camera, Gary Burghoff, the actor who brought Radar to life, wasn't exactly everyone's favorite co-star. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, had a famously short fuse on set, and Burghoff tested it more than once. According to Alan Alda's biography, Rogers once lost his temper during a heated disagreement and even threw a chair in Burghoff's direction. Tensions like that
weren't isolated incidents. Personality clashes, disagreements over lines, and creative differences made working together tense at times. McLean Stevenson, who portrayed Colonel Blake, described his relationship with Burghoff as love-hate. He acknowledged Burghoff's talent and charm, but admitted their interactions could be difficult. "Sometimes I was a problem for him, and he sometimes was a problem for me," Stevenson confessed, highlighting just how complex their dynamic was. Even Alan Alda, the driving creative force behind MASH, experienced friction with Burghoff. Feeling undervalued in terms of recognition and creative input, Burghoff could appear cold, distant, or dismissive on set. It was a delicate balance. The show had to maintain professional cohesion while managing personalities that could ignite conflicts at any moment. Yet, despite the friction, Burghoff's performance never wavered. Radar remained endearing, resourceful, and charming, a testament to his skill as an actor, even when personal tensions ran high. Behind the laughter and heroics of the 407 a quiet storm of interpersonal drama shaped the very fabric of the series. And while Burghoff caused headaches for the cast, the show itself was unstoppable, breaking records, inspiring spin-offs, and creating moments that would go down in television history. MASH wasn't just a hit, it shattered records. Its series finale, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, aired on February 28, 1983, and captured the attention of 77% of the entire US population. To put that in perspective, more people tuned in to watch the finale than the Super Bowl that year. Advertisers scrambled to get spots, with 30-second commercials skyrocketing from the usual $30,000 to an astounding $450,000. The finale wasn't just television, it was a cultural event. Yet, despite its careful crafting, the show occasionally stumbled. In the 10th season, an episode called Showbiz accidentally revealed T markers on the floor, tiny guides meant to help actors hit their mark. One white T was visible behind Father Mulcahy during an emotional farewell, breaking the illusion for eagle-eyed viewers. In another episode, Communication Breakdown, a modern-looking crew member wandered into a shot, wearing clothes completely out of place for the Korean War setting. These small slip-ups reminded audiences that even the most polished shows are made by humans, sometimes imperfect, sometimes hilarious in their mistakes. But errors aside, the show's legacy endured. From inspiring spin-offs like Trapper John MD and After MASH, to subtly including Easter eggs, like naming patients after baseball players or personal acquaintances, the series left its mark on television storytelling. MASH became a cultural touchstone, blending comedy and heartbreak in ways few shows had dared, and proving that a TV series could be both immensely entertaining and deeply human. And as we explore further, the secrets behind its creation, the cast quirks, and its hidden details only make the story richer. MASH was famous for its sharp writing and unforgettable characters, but eagle-eyed fans know the show was full of tiny details that most people never noticed. Take Radar O'Reilly's hat, for instance. Alan Alda made a deliberate choice to have Radar wear the same hat that Donald Sutherland had in the 1970 MASH film, a subtle homage that connected the series to its cinematic roots. Then there was Radar's teddy bear. It wasn't just a prop, it was a symbol of innocence amidst the chaos of war. The bear comforted Radar on screen and became an iconic part of the show. After the series ended, it was thought lost, only to resurface years later and be returned to Gary Burghoff, the actor who played Radar. And the anachronisms, they were everywhere if you look closely. In the first season episode, Tuttle, Radar is seen reading a comic from 1969, even though the show is set during the Korean War in the early 1950s. In the 11th season episode, Give and Take, Sergeant Klinger offers a chocolate bar to a wounded North Korean soldier, but the wrapper clearly displays a UPC barcode, which wouldn't exist until decades later. These small details didn't ruin the story. If anything, they added another layer of charm. They remind us that while MASH strived for authenticity, it also allowed for playful slips and subtle nods that reward attentive viewers. And behind these clever touches, the human stories, the conflicts, the humor, courage kept audiences coming back week after week.